Willst du noch eine Rede halten?
Handtuch. Alles klar. Das kann ich mir gleich geben, ich ziehe mich da gleich sofort raus.
Warte, ich filme das Wasser, warte. Eis hier überall. Ja,
ist egal, überall rein.
In der Mitte am besten da.
Ja. Ich will nicht mal gucken, nicht dass das zu hart ist.
Bin ich drauf?
Ja.
Motherfucker, fuck the fucking world and my new band is called Siskill.
You're gonna dox me for that, CNN? I'll make it really easy for you. This is what I look like. Hi guys, before I get into the topic of today's video, there are a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about. So, I'm sure that a lot of you have noticed a shift that occurred in the culture wars lately. A shift that became very apparent at VidCon, but started even earlier. We have been focusing on the war against the online SJWs, but lately I've been feeling that this war has basically been won, and we need to readjust. And I'm glad to see that others on the scene feel like me. So let's talk about where we should be going. The way I see it, we are now in the second era in the history of the Skeptosphere. The first era occurred between the years 2007 and 2013, and was dedicated to fighting against Scientology, creationism and homophobia. The thing that these three had in common is that they represent religious belief that is taken to a point where it causes harm to society and people. They were pretty much beaten back, and since 2014 we have entered the second era, in which we fight against Islamism, feminism, and the so-called social justice movement. Of those, the fight against Islamism is a carryover from the previous era, but what it has in common with the other two is that they all represent identity politics that are taken to the point where they cause harm to society and people. Now those are more formidable enemies than the ones we fought in the first era, and nevertheless we are winning the online battle. But now we have entered a new phase, and we need to adjust. First, we need to realize that there is another culture war going on, and that's the war between those who are part of internet culture and those who don't get internet culture. Let's call them normies. Normies are scared by internet culture. I talk about this in my video on Count Dankula, where I show how normies don't get the humor of the internet. Because of that, it is easy for the SJWs in the mainstream media to exploit this, and portray all of us as right-wing bigots. So what do we do about it? Well, first of all, we should realize that this war is bigger than the Skeptosphere. It is part of a war waged by old media, which feels threatened by the internet and tries to beat it back. It's not going to work though. The internet will replace old media, and what we should do now is focus on making it a better alternative. That's why I've been talking more about online journalism lately. Anyway, once the internet takes over the mainstream, our victories will influence the way normies think, and identity politics will be demolished. The problem with that is that then we will become the new mainstream, and fighting against identity politics will not be fun anymore. But don't worry, by then there will be new enemies to fight, and we will just enter the third era. Right now, we should be focusing on making the Skeptosphere better. And the first thing we need to do is that we need to start paying more attention to the bad ideas that are growing on the right, which are mostly also the result of identity politics. This is mainly a job for the right-wing shitlords, and I'm glad to see that some of them are already starting to work on it. But leftists like me can help as well, and I intend to contribute what I can. In that vein, I've lately participated in a live stream on Base Mama's channel. She's doing a series on the alt-right, and she asked me on as an expert on Nietzsche. The stream begins with me lecturing for more than half an hour about the concept of the Übermensch, and then we discuss how it relates to the alt-right. So if you're interested, I'll leave a link below. While you're at it, check out Based Mama. She is one of my favorite YouTubers. She is a lot of fun, and she's also been through a lot in her life, which gives her a unique perspective on many of the topics that we usually talk about. Yeah, I watch her for her perspectives. Those are some well-rounded perspectives. Now, thinking more long-term, the front that people like me are most interested in is the academic front. The academy has been the source of all the regressive nonsense that we have been dealing with. And one of the greatest things about this field that we've created is that it gives academics the courage to stand up to the regressives. They know that even if they get kicked out of the academy, they will still have a large audience, which will also support them financially. We are seeing more and more academics stand up, and eventually we will create the critical mass needed to bring change. On that front, I recommend you watch King Crocoduck series on feminist pseudoscience. King Crocoduck is a pretty brilliant guy, almost as brilliant as I was when I was that age, and he uses his channel to debunk pseudoscientific nonsense. He used to argue against creationists, but lately he shifted his attention towards feminist creationism. But then, He got a blast from the past when the creationist Kant-Hovind offered to debate him. This is a reminder that creationism might have been beaten back, but it is still out there, and still needs to be debunked. I watched the two debates that they had, and today's video will relate to them. It actually came at a good time for me, because I have been planning some philosophical videos relating to religion and science. Today's video can serve as a good introduction to that. So, without further ado, let me hand you over to the serpent.
Kant-Hovind is a young Earth creationist, and the debate focuses on astrophysics. Hovind's position is that he accepts the findings of science, but claims that they are not incompatible with his belief that all the stars were created 6,000 years ago. King Crocoduck does a very good job at explaining the physics in a way that anyone can understand, and show how it is incompatible with Hovind's claims. He is also very successful at not allowing Hovind to obfuscate the debate, and keep him on point. And one reason why he is so successful is that he keeps the debate in the realms of astrophysics, which he knows well, and doesn't let his rival pull it to other places. But that also means that he refuses to deal with the philosophical questions that Hovind puts to him, so I thought that this is where I can jump in. Hovind's basic argument is as follows. He claims that scientific theories like Big Bang and evolution should not be taught in schools, because they are based on faith. Basically, he tries to prove that science is a religion, and therefore should not be taught in schools that are funded by taxes, according to the principle of separation of church and state. He bases it on the claim that science cannot prove the axioms it is based on, and that every scientific theory contains assumptions that are unproven. Therefore, it is no different from a religion. It is just a system of thought that is based on faith.
Do you believe a crocodile and a duck are related? And what is the evidence for that? Nobody has ever seen a duck produce a non-duck or a crocodile produce a non-crocodile. You're living in dreamland. You would think it happened, you imagine it happened, but evolution is a religion that people believe in. It is not part of science. Real science is things we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Now, I resent having to be forced to pay for that to be taught in the school system, and I think most people do. We are all being forced at the point of a gun to pay for your religion to be taught to all these kids. If you really believe a crocodile and a duck are related, you should go start a private school and pay to teach whatever you want to have your kids taught.
Still want to know where the mass and energy came from. I don't think we've got an answer here. If you want to start with something, you haven't really got a good theory. We don't have an answer to that. You have a religion, admit it. And you think all the mass came from some energy. So you think it was a one-way equation at one time. Your Big Bang has to start with an arrow, not an equal sign, because you had nothing but energy. And you didn't tell me where this energy came from, where space came from, or where time came from.
I don't need to. The Big Bang Theory doesn't answer these questions.
Well, then it's a religion. You believe it happened. I don't want to pay for it anymore. Get it. Go teach it. Go start a private school and teach it to those who want to come learn it.
No. Well, Mr. Hovind, you are absolutely right. Science is based on axioms that cannot be proven, and science cannot give us the truth. But what you seemingly fail to understand is that science does not presume to be the truth. Science merely presumes to be the best of our knowledge, and we regard it as an authority, because regarding the best of our knowledge as an authority is what rational people do. If you think about your daily life, you will realize that nothing in it is certain. When we do something, we don't require knowing the truth before we act, but we act according to the best of our knowledge. Let's say you're walking down the street, on a concrete pavement. How do you know it is safe to walk on it, and the ground will not suddenly open up and swallow you whole? Well, first of all, you rely on your eyesight, which tells you that this is solid concrete. Secondly, you rely on past experiences, which tell you concrete is safe to walk on. Third, you rely on things that you have learned, which give you more knowledge on the nature of pavements. And fourth, you use your logic to deduce from all of this that it is safe to walk. But do any of those things give you certainty? No, they don't. Your senses might be deceiving you. Your experience with similar events does not give you guarantee, because no event is completely identical to those that came before. Your education might be lacking, and your deduction might be faulty. There is nothing that gives you 100% certainty that a sinkhole won't open under your feet. So what do? Do we take precautions before every step to make sure a sinkhole isn't there? No. We would not be able to function if we demanded certainty for everything. We live our lives acting on the knowledge that our senses, experiences, education and logic provide us, trusting that it will be alright. This is what is known as acting rationally. And yes, at the bottom of it, acting rationally is also based on faith. Faith that faculties like senses, memories, and logic are trustworthy. But unlike religious faith, here we put faith in faculties that are part of our nature, faculties that have proven themselves necessary to our survival. To say it differently, the faith in rationality precedes any other system of faith. It doesn't matter if you are religious or atheist, you will act according to it. When Mr. Kent-Hovind walks down the street, he also judges the safety of his steps in the way we described. Furthermore, he, like the rest of us, will expect other people to act rationally. If someone does something bad out of ignorance, we will ask if they acted on the best of their knowledge, and if they used rational means to procure that knowledge. If they did, then we will not put any blame on them. So, you can make the case that science is just another faith system. But the difference from other faith systems is that science is based on faith in those faculties that define rationality. Science relies on the same things: knowledge acquired through empirical evidence, experience, prior knowledge, and logic. As we mentioned, these are the faculties that Kent-Hovind himself uses to deal with his daily life. So if he wants to question their validity, he will first of all have to explain why he relies on them himself. Now, science goes further than our daily experience. It actually starts where our experience ends, and tries to figure out what is currently unknown. To return to our metaphor, it is looking at a pavement that is made of a material that we are unfamiliar with, and trying to figure out if it is safe to walk on. What is the rational way to behave in this case? Well, the most seminal work written about this subject is Karl Popper's Conjectures and Refutations, published in 1957. This is an article that anyone who is in our sphere should be familiar with, and I will link to it below. Popper's aim here is to distinguish between science and pseudoscience, and the principle he sets, famously, is that a scientific theory must make predictions that can be refuted with evidence. Pseudoscience can provide ad hoc explanations to any event that occurs, so its theories can never be proven wrong. Science, on the other hand, poses theories that predict things that will happen, and rejects the theory if the predictions turn out to be wrong. A scientific theory, according to Popper, does not presume to be the truth. It is a theory. The more successful predictions it makes, the stronger our faith is in that theory, but we never have certainty, and we are always prepared to ditch it once it's been refuted. That's where this faith differs from religious faith, which does not contend to be temporary. And that is why this type of faith is still within the realm of rational behavior, whereas religious faith is not. Assume that we have deliberately made it our task to live in this unknown world of ours, writes Popper, to adjust ourselves to it as well as we can, to take advantage of the opportunities we can find in it, and to explain it, if possible. We need not assume that it is, and as far as possible, with the help of laws and explanatory theories. If we have made this our task, then there is no more rational procedure than the method of trial and error, of conjecture and refutation, of boldly proposing theories, of trying our best to show that these are erroneous, and of accepting them tentatively if our critical efforts are unsuccessful. Now, you might ask yourself, what is it all for? If science is merely one theory replacing the other, and none of these theories giving us truth and certainty, then what progress are we making? Well, the answer is simple. We may not be making any progress towards figuring out the secrets of the universe, but we are enhancing our practical knowledge. Every new theory enables us to create new technologies that give us greater power and control over nature. The early astronomers who thought that the heavenly bodies are all revolving around the Earth were wrong, but they were still able to make predictions based on that theory. They were still able to predict when the sun will rise in the east and set in the west, even though it doesn't actually rise and set, and based on those predictions they could devise the agriculture and other things. And the newer astronomers, adopting the heliocentric model, were able to make better predictions that actually allowed us to create a technology that sends humans to land on those heavenly bodies. And, more importantly, technology that allows us to make human life longer and better. In the debate, Hovind tries to claim that some of the concepts that King Crocoduck uses, such as dark energy, are just conjectures that cannot be observed, so scientists who believe in them are simply acting on faith. We can now explain why he is wrong. Dark energy is indeed a conjecture, but it is a conjecture that allows us to make good predictions. It doesn't matter if it exists or not, or what its real nature is. It is a conjecture that we hold to as long as it produces good predictions, and we will abandon when we come up with a conjecture that produces better predictions. That is why alleging the existence of dark energy is not a matter of faith, but part of a rational system of thought. Popper's definition of science is widely accepted, so much so that even creationists like Karl-Hovind are trying to show that their theories adhere to it. In a telling moment in the debate, King Crocoduck describes how the Big Bang theory led some scientists to hypothesize the existence of cosmic background radiation, a hypothesis that was proven true some years later, meaning that the Big Bang theory has shown its strength in leading to accurate predictions. And this is Hovind's reaction.
Now, is there anything else that could be causing this, or is that enough to have you tell everybody that they must believe this is evidence that it all was in one dot and exploded? Is there anything else that could cause this cosmic background radiation?
There could be, but this is beside the point. Well, we'll talk about alternatives in a second. The point, as I mentioned last time, we judge a theory's strength by its capability to predict future data. Nobody had even conceived of the possibility of a cosmic microwave background radiation prior to the Big Bang and prior to this calculation. The fact that this calculation succeeded and the fact that they were able to accurately predict the existence and the temperature and even other features of this background radiation, its isotropy, its homogeneity, they predicted all of this prior to actually measuring it. This is very strong evidence in favor of the model. It shows that we can actually make accurate predictions about future data using this model of the Big Bang theory.
Okay, well, let me make a prediction then. I have a model that says God created all the plants and animals to bring forth after their kind.
What does this have to do?
If you have children,
why are you changing the subject? I thought you said one subject at a time.
I have a model that makes predictions. My model says everything will bring forth after its kind. I predict dogs will always produce dogs, and no matter how many, and you, if you have children, they will grow up to be human, and they will be human, and their children will be human, and their children's children will be human. I think our model is predicting things just fine.
What Hovind is trying to say here is that his predictions are better, because he predicts something that is corroborated in millions of cases every day, whereas the Big Bang theory led to only a few predictions. He predicts that no organism will ever birth a different kind of organism. That is indeed a refutable claim, because it will be refuted the day we observe an organism giving birth to a different kind. Until that day, Hovind is trying to tell us, we must accept his theory over the evolutionary theory. The problem with this assertion is that Kant's predictions pertain only to the known world. He is basically predicting that it is safe to walk on a concrete pavement. Such predictions are worthless, because they do not advance our knowledge. Popper's criterion applies only when we talk about the unknown, that which we are trying to figure out. And when it comes to that, creationism never makes any predictions, and that is one of the reasons why it is a pseudoscience. Why doesn't Hovind get it? Well, I would say that he is philosophically stuck in a previous phase. Traditionally, the belief was that our main goal as humans is to find the absolute truth. This stems from the belief put forth by Socrates and Plato, who believed that happiness and goodness are dependent on knowing the truth. So the debate between religion and science was about which one of them gives us the truth. In other words, can the human mind figure out the truth about existence, or does it require divine revelation? Hovind concedes that he cannot prove that faith gives us the truth, so he attempts to show that science is also nothing but faith. If he succeeds in that, he believes, he will put religion and science on the same level, and then he can argue for the superiority of religion, based for instance on Pascal's wager. But secular thought has long since abandoned the idea that absolute truth is the goal. We realize that goodness and happiness are not dependent on knowing the absolute truth. The way we see it now, rational behavior is the way to achieve a better and happier world, and science is merely part of this rational endeavor. This shift, however, brought some unwanted results. The abandonment of the search for the absolute truth has led to the postmodernist attitude, which says that truth doesn't matter at all, and all there is are narratives. The postmodernists care only about advancing their own narrative, and they cherry-pick only the facts that fit them, and omit everything else. But this is not rational behavior. As we recall, we stipulated that rational research should seek the best of our knowledge. For that, you need to bring into account all the known facts, and try to create a theory that best explains them. A science that fails to do so is a pseudoscience. Some people in the skeptosphere are also stuck in the old story. About a year ago, I made a video about those of us who blame postmodernists for abandoning the pursuit of universal truth. I warned back then that you are barking up the wrong tree. Postmodernism is an outcome of the abandonment of the pursuit of universal truth, not the cause of it. Karl Popper was not a postmodernist, and yet he too, as we saw, did not believe that we can find the truth about our existence. Trying to go back to that belief is like asking us to become religious again. It's simply not going to work, because it is not something that we can believe in anymore. I also said in that video that I would offer ways to deal with this realization. Well, today's video described one such way, so let's sum it up. Basically, what I am saying is that the belief that we must seek the absolute truth is nothing but a prejudice. It is based on a tradition that believes that goodness and happiness are dependent on knowing the truth. Those who are part of that tradition believe that if we abandon the pursuit of universal truth, we also abandon morality and the pursuit of happiness. You should simply liberate your mind of this prejudice, and realize that goodness and happiness are not dependent on knowing the absolute truth. You can be a good and happy person in our uncertain world, and you can work towards making it a happier and better world. And one of the conditions for that is that you act rationally, and fight against those who attempt to impose irrational ways of thought and behavior. This is one of the missions that should define the Skeptosphere.